This first started out, it's been a little over 2 years ago when we were notified to get your certified letter, pick your certified letter up. Didn't know what it was about. And then we found out it was a letter from Navigator wanting to put a CO2 pipeline through our farms. So as soon as I read that, I was infuriated. The length of my farm sits east and west. They would have started about 500 feet below my door in my house, running it straight west to about halfway point, and then they were going to diagonal it to the northwest, which would have been that much more worse because you're going to hit 1,000,000 tiles by doing that. And anytime you got elbows or T's in a pipeline with that much pressure, you're asking for trouble due to wear and tear. The stuff's at 2,100 PSI, where most pipelines are 900. So if that solution going through your pipeline isn't within 1% of purities, it's going to turn to carbonic acid, and then you got major corrosion going on in a short time. In my mind, it'd be like rubbing sandpaper on your face for 5 minutes to see if it hurts when you're done. So I talked to all the neighbors that I thought might be in the corridor, and I put together about 6 of us that could maybe kind of put things together and mobilize and let the people around the area know that it isn't just going to affect us. We put that together, had a few meetings in town, had a few meetings out here. Then when we got enough stuff organized, we had people meet at this farm. We probably had 35 people put together within a month to meet out here. Give me information about a lawyer that we could hook up with, Brian Jordy out of Nebraska, which he's basically everybody's lawyer in this corridor all the way out through western Iowa. And gave them that information, got a hold of John Birch Society, and they gave us their information and put us in contact with people that knew more about it than we did. Navigator they have to put on an information meeting for your county before they can do anything. So they put that on, I'm gonna guess it was around October, maybe a little before that. And we probably had, 200 people in town show up for that. But we were so green to it, and we weren't sure what questions to ask. And the ones we did ask, we found out later that they weren't the true answers. One in particular was, that I asked was, are you gonna own the CO2 that's in the pipeline? At that point, they said no. Well, now they say they are gonna own it. Some it says they're gonna own it. Just little things like that. Things they forgot to mention that they still are forgetting to mention. One of them is the fact that they wanna have huge amounts of water. They need extra water to purify this, well, what it is, they heat up the CO2 coming out of the smokestacks to a supercritical state. They got to cool it down to a transportable temperature. And that's going to take 3.36 billion gallons of water across Iowa for 1 year. It's like doubling the amount of what the ethanol plants need. So we learned a lot since then. So after that meeting, we had we put together a meeting of our own and invited like Jessica Mazur. Dan Ziegert was a journalist that went down to Satarsha, Mississippi to find out about that explosion, rupture that CO2 pipeline was, and that wasn't good. And then we had Tammy Colbs there to speak, along with we Zoomed with our lawyer, Brian Jordy. So we probably had 150 to 200 people at that one. So people came aware of it pretty quick. And that was a county meeting we put on. And I think when it's all said and done, I don't think the pipe companies had any idea that Iowans could mobilize and put things together that quick. Because from what we gather, when we look back at it, they wanted to push this thing through as quick as they could, because there's a lot of things that they don't even know about it. They just want to get it in the ground, capture that 45Q tax money from the government, and the rest of us are collateral damage. And now that everybody's finding out, this water usage thing should be enough to stop the whole project, because if everybody knew that they're going to drain the deep aquifers over this, which they will, CO2 would be the least of our worries. We're going to be out of water. People around here are really good at conservation, keeping their waterways up. We don't want to see our black ground wash down the river or into our ditches any more than the Sierra Club does. But sometimes they're a little too green, just like this whole green plan that the government come up with. That whole thing, in everybody's mind, we know there's a deeper effect of that. That's like soft communism. It's more regulations. It's more do this or else, just like the wokeness is right now. You comply or you get out. That's what that ESG is all about. Environmental, social, governance. That's a scary word. That's just more government. That's governance governing us, what we do. You put too much fertilizer on, you get you get a check mark. Keep your houses too cool with AC, that's a check mark. Using too much fuel, check mark. They're going to lower the amount of production that we can raise, crops we can raise, because we're not going to have the fertilizer because we're out of their parameters. John Birch Society totally, more so on our side about our constitutional rights, which is a good thing, but they're really trying to trim those down to our governor. And I'm so frustrated because I was really behind her early on. She was all about police force and protection and such, but she's fallen into an area that I think she's following the money. The senators have not done a thing to pick up any of the bills that the representatives have sent up to their table for the last 2 years about helping with the CO2. We put these people in office, we vote them in, they tell us an earful that, man, we're here to protect you, we're going to take care of you, and then as soon as the money shows up, all that it's gone. And I'm fed up with it. I'm fed up with our government and our officials. We ought to clean house on all of them. Give them a 10-year limit and be done with all of it. I guarantee you, there's farmers out here that could do a better job than anybody that's in office right now. We're tired of it, and we're not going to get pushed around. We'll fight this thing to the end. Nobody seems to realize that the emissions coming out of the CO2 smokestacks at the ethanol plant is carbon neutral. All the CO2 that the crops take in the year is equivalent to the amount that it comes out, so there's no net gain there. The only reason they're going after that because it's the purest form of CO2 there is, and it's simple, it's right there. Let's capture it. But if we don't have CO2, our crops aren't going to grow well. They pump CO2 into big greenhouses because plants do better. We're 400 parts per million in the atmosphere right now of CO2. The ice age, they figured there was 200 parts per million. And then I asked people, well, who caused the ice age? You think this is all man-made global warming? Who caused the ice age? Wasn't man. They just don't get that Earth is a cyclical thing. It heats up and cools down. Let Earth take care of it itself. They want to sequester something that was God-made CO2 for our benefit, and they want to bury it 2 miles in the ground, deep in the ground, so nobody can get their hands on it. Doesn't make any sense. Besides, they're not putting together the fact that, look at that pressure under the ground. There's fault lines throughout the Midwest. How can that not cause an eruption somewhere across the line and totally contaminate all the water supply? They don't care about collateral damage, and I'm tired of it. There's a reason they want to own it. Yeah, they can market it.
Yeah.
But yet it's funny. It's our product, our crops.
Yeah.
They need subsidies to support it. They need our ground to support it. They need our crop to support it. They need our tax money to support it. And what do we get out of it? We get the price of land out of it. If you don't want to sell your land, that's not worth anything then, So it's $20,000 an acre when you don't want to sell. And now I got a pipe bomb into my farm. With 12 grandkids running around, I don't need them to be asphyxiated when it blows. And the devalue of the ground, as far as I'm concerned, I asked our state senator about checking into what's that going to do to the value of our ground, and he said, we'll get back to you on that. Well, I finally, after 2 months of waiting, I called him. Yeah, we kind of looked through it, and we thought, there would be no devaluation of your ground. I'm thinking, how would you know that? There's no CO2 pipeline in the state of Iowa right now. Never got a response to that. I don't want to have to worry about a pipeline rupturing when I'm sleeping and never wake up again. Within 5 years after they sell, they'll get the money, most money they can out of 5 years, and then guess who's going to own it? China. You just know they will. Or some foreign country that isn't looking out for our best interest. When China's growing, they got how much Iowa farm ground now? Why do they want all that Iowa farm ground? I've been thinking about that a lot too since the beginning. They figure there's around 8,700 acres that's going to be gobbled up in this, it's 4 acres of my own right there. You don't have any control over it. I can't get insurance to protect myself from that thing rupturing on my farm. They won't cover us. Does that make any sense? Is that the American way? That stuff, that just drives me nuts. And if something happens, it's definitely going to be my fault in their mind. They got too much money to spend against it. Pipeline company, oh no, that's not true. You drove over it when you shouldn't have. It was too heavy. You know, you didn't keep it under the ground far enough, blah, blah, blah. You won't win against that. So yeah, that's a huge concern. I don't want China owning my ground or then telling me what to do with it. Mobilize as quickly as possible. Talk to people in other counties that have been through it. Get as much information as you can. And don't believe everything the government's telling you or these pipeline companies. Do your own research. Know that the science they're giving you really isn't science. Find out the real hazards of the whole thing. The actual water amount that they're going to call on top of what you're using, which they will not disclose. They won't talk about the safety features. They don't feel that they have to divulge that information, which blows my mind. We're just finding out now in the last 8 months that all this water thing, nobody's ever mentioned that, and you see why they wouldn't want to mention that. So you got to get the information out, and then people in different counties will find, hey, come to my county and talk. Share it with us. I've done that for small towns around the area that's how they became aware of it, and then they can run with it. I always liked defending the guy growing up in school that was getting bullied on. I couldn't tolerate that. My sons are the same way, and I love seeing it. And that's what's happening here. We're getting bullied, especially when your own government won't protect you from it. Our governors, our senators, they ought to be ashamed of themselves. They're punks. They got no spine, and I got no time for somebody without a spine. I want to tell you what they want you to hear, or what you think you want to hear. Anyway, we've seen that with all the people we put in office. Boy, we're right there with you. They come around all these parades during the summer and the fairs and hand out the literature and smiling and shaking your hand, the best guy in the world, until you really need them, and then they don't get back to you. Zero time for that. You got to fight for what's yours. Nobody else is going to do it for you.